Welcome to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. So we are sitting now in a city, Pensacola, Florida, that is much safer today than it was a week ago because last Saturday, March 20th, the city of Pensacola conducted a gun buyback program where they purchased dangerous guns from people who turned them in for cash. I was at that event. So were Chris Smith and Jeremy Basso, and I've got both of them in the studio with me today, and we're going to talk about that. So Chris Smith, the owner of Gulf Coast Gun, welcome.
Thanks, Mike. I feel a lot safer knowing that the flare gun is off the street. I saw the guy pull it out, and I got really nervous. I'm so glad those police officers took custody of that flare gun.
And Jeremy Basso, the founder of Escambia Carry. Jeremy, welcome.
Happy to be here.
So what happened on Saturday was the city of Pensacola conducted a gun buyback event at Bill Gregory Park. They spent $10,000 out of Mayor Grover Robinson's slush fund to purchase 68 firearms. Now, they got 71 because 3 people showed up after they ran out of money and just let them have the guns for free. So they got 71 guns for $10,000. At most, Chris, and you saw the guns that came through there, you're better at appraising gun values than me, but at most, I estimate they were cumulatively worth $3,500. What would you say?
At best. There was one firearm that I was upset that I missed. It was a Remington Speedmaster. And it was worth about $200 what they paid the guy for, but they're really nice firearms. The rest of them, I wouldn't trust my life as a paperweight. I mean, I wouldn't throw those things at somebody. I'm afraid they'd fall apart in the air going at them.
Well, we did try to buy some guns. I was there with a sign that said, "Don't get ripped off by the city with this stupid gun buyback program. See me to get fair market value for your firearm. 100% legal, 0% stupid." And the whole idea there was that if people came in with guns that actually had value, we were going to send them to Gulf Coast Gun. You were going to appraise it more or less on the spot and then tell them to go to the store to buy it, and they'd get fair market value. But as it turned out, with the one exception you just mentioned, they were all junk guns except for one, which I'll tell you about in a moment, and that was one that I sold. But go ahead.
If I would have brought $500 and bought everyone's gun, I probably would have gotten ripped off.
They were that junky.
There was a couple guys there that snagged a couple rifles. Was it
one guy got
22? Got a 22 with scope.
1022.
Yeah. The other guy got an SKS?
An SKS.
And a double barrel shotgun.
The double barrel shotgun was junk. To be honest with you,
it's more of a conversation.
Yes,
piece.
It was. He said he was just going to hang it on his wall. It looked cool.
It did look kind of cool.
I probably would have sold him one for $50 had we had a junk double barrel shotgun like that in our shop.
But I think other than that, I mean, we were standing right there, and the line was right in front of us, and you just ask them, you're like, hey, you want us to have a look? Maybe we might offer you something a little bit more than the city's going to offer. And without fail, almost every one of them shook their head, and they're like, you don't want this. Trust me, it's not worth it. And we're like, well, let's just have a look. Some of them had dirt, like they were dug up in the backyard, rusted through and through. How many people did you hear that literally said, I can't get anything for this anyway, so I'm going to take the cash and go buy another firearm?
That's what Mike said. He said talked to people in line, and they were going to go buy something good.
Literally.
Yeah, I talked to maybe half the people that were in line, and almost everybody I talked to said they were going to buy a better gun. And they said the same thing you just said, Jeremy, that they knew the gun was worthless, and they couldn't get $125, $150, because the city was paying, and this is the crazy thing, the city was paying $125 for revolvers, $150 for semi-automatic pistols, and $200 for a semi-automatic rifle.
We all saw the pictures of the boomstick, 1776, right?
I was disappointed for that guy.
Well, I will tell you, and for people that maybe thought this can't be a firearm, it is. It's a slam fire shotgun,
now, Jeremy,
single shot.
Let me interrupt just for a moment, because not everybody knows what a boomstick is. So if you will describe it for us, that'd be helpful. And I'll tell you that it was such a big deal that the city actually issued a press release saying that what you had posted to social media was untrue, even though what you had posted to social media was mostly true. But go ahead and describe what a...
Well, it wasn't a lie. What I posted wasn't factually false. I did provide more context in the comments, but I guess people didn't read the comments because I answered questions that people asked. So then I did come back, and then I did, instead of answering the same question 100 times and So
I have
I just-
video, Jeremy, if you need it, of the police officer saying, "Go get paid."
Oh, he did. Yeah. Well, so what happened?
Here's the thing.
So
though. First of all,
here's
Jeremy, let's describe the gun. See,
Sure,
not everybody knows.
Yeah. So it's basically the simple version is it's a pipe. Sometimes people put a wooden handle or maybe taking something to grip in a pipe.
And in this case, it was made with pipe and lumber. It looked like a literal 2x4.
I think he used electrical conduit. He told me pipe, I believe. So he said, I don't know if I would trust the strength of that pipe, but.
Okay, so this thing has electrical conduit as the barrel, and it had what looked like an untreated pine 2x4 stock.
With the lumber barcode sticker still attached.
Which I thought was hysterically funny that it still had the UPC code on there for the lumber.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But you posted a photo of that.
And he had
you
3.
said, yeah, right, he had 3.
Yeah.
You posted a photo that said
this fella
the city
had 3.
bought 3 guns. And apparently the city didn't actually buy 3 guns, even though they cleared the police safety checkpoint and they were going to buy it. Why didn't they?
So they ran out of money. The background to that story is he called to ask the city rep that he was referred to before the event, because the flyers originally were advertising that they were going to purchase semi-auto firearms, revolvers and semi-auto. And he called and he asked them, we buy a single shot shotgun. And, it's not semi-auto, but would you buy that? And they said, yes, we'll pay $125 for a single shot shotgun. So he said, okay, fair enough, I'll be there. So he shows up. What he showed up with was 3 Boomstick 1776, which are slam fire.
Homemade. These
shotguns.
are clearly homemade.
Homemade. But
and so the city was going to buy 3 of these guns. I put those kind of in air quotes.
Sure.
This is radio.
Well, it was a functional firearm.
Okay.
So technically, it was legit.
But the only reason they didn't buy these was because the city ran out of money by 9:27. Keep in mind, it started at 9. So in less than a half an hour, they spent all $10,000 of the mayor's slush fund.
They spun that as a successful event.
Yeah. But they did get rid of that Marine emergency flare gun. That flare gun did make it through the police checkpoint, the safety and all that. And I had said, and it turns out it was erroneous, that the city bought it. And I couldn't figure out how much they paid.
Well, the officer after the event, their 2 officers were speaking, and then one, I believe the one had asked the other one, they said, did we buy that flare gun? He goes, yeah. He goes, well.
Well, apparently they didn't. And here's the reason I say that. Well,
that may be where we got misinformation, but I was told that by.
No, I understand the police told you that, but I believe that was misinformation. Not deliberate, but it was not accurate, apparently.
Sure.
I had contacted the public information officer for the city of Pensacola, and I put in a request for the actual log. Keep in mind, I sold 3 guns, so I saw the process here. They hand wrote things down. They wrote what it was and how much they paid for it, and I requested a copy of that log so that I could look up and see emergency flare gun or orange gun or whatever they had called the thing and how much they paid for it. And it wasn't on the list, but they also didn't give me the handwritten one. They gave me the what looked like an Excel spreadsheet from where that had been entered into the computer. And I specifically then responded saying, okay, thank you for sending me that. I didn't see on that list what I was specifically looking for. How much did you pay for the boomsticks? And how much did you pay for the boating emergency flare gun? And I was told they didn't buy the boomsticks because they ran out of money, and I never heard back on the flare gun. However, the city did release some success photos where they had the gun splayed out on tables, and I did not see the flare gun there. So I don't know what happened to it. I truly don't know if they bought it or not.
It was probably worth more than the rest of the guns that they purchased, to be honest with you. I looked them up on Amazon, and they were like $60.
Oh, they're $40 at West Marine, brand new.
Sure.
Oh,
right.
Well, like I said, still
60 with flares. Just the gun is 40.
Still worth more than the guns that I saw purchased.
But I believe in the post, I said this fella had 3 Boomstick 1776s, and then someone asked me, "Are you serious? Did they really buy these?" And I said, "They approved the purchase." He was directed over to the payment area, but while standing in line, they ran out of money. So that's what I said. But then somehow I'm lying. I said that they ran out of money as I was standing there. So
the scary part was when the guy walked through with the flare gun, I heard one officer ask another officer, "Will we take a flare gun?" And the other officer, I'm guessing, I don't know which one it was in charge, said, "It's a firearm."
But it's not a firearm.
It's not a firearm.
And it's
But
not a
that's
revolver,
scary.
and it's not a semi-automatic, and it's not a long gun, so what would they pay him for it anyway?
Is that not scary to you that a police officer considered a flare gun a firearm?
That is scary. And I'll tell you another funny story, and I don't mean funny, ha-ha, I mean funny like pathetic, is that, as you know, I sold 3 guns. And let me tell that story before I tell this one. So I sold 3 guns that day. 2 basically junk revolvers that I purchased at a pawn shop for less than $25 total, not each, and a brand new 22 caliber semi-automatic Rossi rifle that retails for $149.99. I sold all 3 of those guns to the city for $450. They had at most a retail value of $175. And I'm going to donate all $450 of that to the NRA, which will actually do something for gun safety far more than these idiots at the city ever could. But I arrived about 8:30, and I was 10th in line. And there was a woman 4 or 5 places in front of me who had a canvas tool bag. And at the gun safety checkpoint, not the window where they actually gave you the money, but the first stop, she takes out a junk pistol and then another and another and then another. It was like clowns coming out of a Volkswagen at the circus. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to run out of money before I get there. I think she sold them 12, 20, something like that, junk revolvers. I don't know the count. And the names were, well, they didn't ask names, actually. They don't even know who she was. But they bought all of those. But there was a guy immediately in front of me, this is getting back to the definition of a firearm, who had 4 AR-15 lower receivers. And a lower receiver, according to the BATFE, is a firearm. And they wouldn't buy it from him. And he was arguing with them for a good 5-6 minutes, and then finally they said, sir, step over here, we'll resolve it, and we'll keep the line moving. And that's when I went up and sold them my 3 guns. Well, as it turned out, they denied him. They did not purchase them from him on the grounds that they weren't functional, even though I would argue that the AR-15 lowers he had functioned exactly as designed to function in the condition they were in, which were legally classified as firearms.
I think these police officers thought that this was as ridiculous as we thought it was, to be honest with you. And they were like, let's just get this over with as fast as we possibly can.
Yeah, well, we understand that the police officers were there because that was their assignment for the day. Okay, they were on the clock, they were working, they had no choice. The real stupidity of that event last Saturday isn't the police officers. They were just doing their jobs. The real stupidity is the politicians who authorized that. So let's take our break, and when we get back, we will talk about those idiot politicians, both the mayor, Grover Robinson, and also the city council, specifically Delarian Wiggins, because it was his harebrained idea. We'll discuss that when the Mike Bates Show continues. Welcome back to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. With me in the studio, Chris Smith from Gulf Coast Gun and Jeremy Bosso from Escambia Carry. We are talking about the gun buyback program, which I don't quite understand how it could be called that. How do you buy back something you never owned to begin with?
I buy back guns all the time, Mike, but I sold them to the customer.
See, you are honest in your terminology. The city's not.
That's right.
And so the city council had passed this initially 7-0. It was a unanimous vote to do this ridiculous gun buyback program. Then Jared Moore of District 4 and Casey Jones of District 3 in the following meeting changed their minds because they had heard from their constituents, look, guys, this is idiotic. Don't do this. But it still then ultimately passed 5-2. And then our idiot mayor, Grover Robinson, agrees to spend $10,000 out of his slush fund to buy these guns.
And I believe at the meeting, the council members even admitted, they said, look, we know that there's really no evidence that gun buybacks do anything to reduce violence. But then it goes to the whole, well, you got to do something. The quote-unquote do something kind of
mentality. But if it
mentality.
saves just one life, Jeremy.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you go to Google or any search engine and type the phrase, do gun buybacks reduce gun violence? And look at every article from Harvard to NPR. They will tell you there is no evidence at all suggesting that gun buybacks reduce violence. So what you have is a lot of these are funded with taxpayer dollars. And people use these sort of basically get some photo ops for their flyers for their next campaign. And it basically says, hey, you know, I'm getting free campaign materials out of here to say, look at me, I'm anti.
That's all it
2A.
was.
That's all it
I mean,
is.
that Councilman Wiggins changed his tune from "we got to get guns out of these criminals' hands" to "oh, we saved someone from committing suicide today with one of these guns." I mean, the guy flip-flops. It was obviously just a political circus.
Yeah, he said it was a success because it could prevent a suicide. Well, what I wanted to know is when he is going to have a poison, rope, and plastic bag buyback program, because suffocations and poisonings constitute 42% of suicides in America. So, hey, if it saves just one life, Councilman Wiggins.
That's right.
So Councilman Wiggins came up to me after the event had more or less cleared out, which happened pretty quickly, as you know. There were a lot of people in line, which is kind of funny. Let me step back just a moment. Part of the reason that Mayor Grover Robinson and Councilman Delarian Wiggins think that this is such a good idea is because they ran out of money so quickly. So their measurement of success is not whether or not it saves just one life. Their measurement of success is how quickly they wasted $10,000. The actual result is meaningless to them. They assume that because $10,000 was given away so quickly in less than a half an hour that it must have been successful.
Well, if we're talking about success as far as, how quickly the money was spent, I mean, perhaps, and this is something that I mentioned to Delarian, I had a chance to talk to him after the event, but perhaps a more effective use would be covering the cost of firearms safety training courses. These courses do more to promote safety, in my opinion, than a gun buyback.
That's not an opinion, Jeremy. That's actually a fact.
Sure.
Everything you mentioned does more for firearm safety than a worthless gun buyback.
Yeah, the $450 that I'm going to be donating to the NRA that I got from this stupid gun buyback program will do more for gun safety than this stupid gun buyback program, because the $450 represents 4.5% of the $10,000 that the city wasted on it. I'm donating that to the NRA Foundation, which since its inception has donated more than $420 million to things like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, FFA, and other youth programs teaching them the safe use of firearms. Eddie Eagle Gun Safety Program being one of them, shooting range development, hunter safety courses, law enforcement training. The NRA does far more to promote gun safety than anyone else in America. So that's one reason why I'm giving the $450 to the NRA. The other reason is because I know it will annoy the gun grabbers who supported this ridiculous idea, right? I did it partly because I know it will do some good, and partly because I know it will annoy the people whose idea this was. And I have to admit, I take pleasure in that.
We got all the unlawful gun owners off the street with the buyback program, though, right?
Well, it was a success, according to Councilman Wiggins and Mayor Robinson, which we'll talk about when the Mike Bates Show continues. Welcome back to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. With me in the studio, Chris Smith, the owner of Gulf Coast Gun in Milton, and also Jeremy Basso. He's the founder of Escambia Carry. We are talking about the City of Pensacola's gun buyback program that happened last Saturday, the 20th, at Bill Gregory Park, where the city spent $10,000 of Mayor Robinson's slush fund, buying about $3,500 worth, to be generous. Chris, who actually knows gun values far more than me, says that $3,500 is way high. But they bought junk guns. It wasn't anywhere near $10,000 worth of guns. We'll at least agree on that.
I had enough money in my pocket that day to pay for the value of those guns.
And yet, Grover Robinson, the mayor, said, and these were his exact words, "I didn't realize the gun buyback program would be so successful."
I hope he does it again, to be honest with you, because I always love a chance to go after idiotic politicians.
Well, I talked to Councilman Delarian Wiggins after the event, because I had mentioned, I said, man, if we're going to, that's when I mentioned my idea to him about, look, if you insist on spending these taxpayer dollars, I would really prefer we do some firearm safety training and invite the public to do that for free. When I mentioned that idea that we talked about earlier to him, he said, yeah, I don't think we'll be doing an event like this for a while. If we do, it definitely won't be a gun buyback program. So I'm not sure.
I don't know. It was such a success.
But it was such a success.
We got so many of Grandpa's 1927 revolvers that had been under a wooden staircase for
how many did you
100
see
years there
when they were standing in line, and we asked, hey, you think you might be interested in selling that? We'll take a look and see what we might offer. How many of them had dirt, like they had been dug up?
Everyone I saw was
Rust
like,
or dirt.
You know, honestly,
handles were falling off.
Honestly, people bring guns like that their grandpa left them in here all the time, and we're like, yeah, sorry, there's nothing we can do with that. Now, we will, if they just want to get rid of them, we will take them to get them out of their hands.
And I don't have a problem with that. If the city wanted to have some service to where, look, your spouse passed away, you don't know what to do, you don't have any other family members, you have no idea what to do with it, you know, bring it down to the sheriff's office, and they don't have to even they don't even have to destroy them. They can offer them for auction.
Absolutely, I'll volunteer my time, and I'll tell them, hey, this
come
gun's
down and
worth
appraise it.
Yeah, this gun's worth $300. Don't give it away. You can go to my shop, or you can go to somebody else's shop and sell it to them. Or that's a junk gun. Let them get rid of this gun for you.
And the police department will take that gun
Sure.
off your hands if you want to simply turn it in.
And that's what I was saying. Is I don't have a problem with that. I'm not opposed to that. I'm thinking to myself that if the stated purpose was to reduce gun violence, you know,
they didn't do that. Honestly, when I saw you and Councilman Wiggins have a discussion there, he approached you and wanted to talk to you, Mike, and you were a lot nicer than I am. You guys are a lot more respectful to these guys than I am. When you come after the Second Amendment, I lose all respect for you, so I'm not very respectful. But he came up and he really, really wanted this press. You could see him smiling for the cameras, and you could see him just like this was the greatest thing that he had ever accomplished. And if it is, I feel sorry for his district because he hasn't done a very good job as a councilman.
Well, he came up to me because, of course, I had this very visible sign, so it was obviously...
You were hard to miss.
So I was hard to miss, exactly.
It was blazing red.
Yeah, and so he came up to me and he wanted to talk about the program, and I asked him if I could record it, and he said no. And so I just made the decision, well, I'd rather have the conversation and not record it than not have the conversation at all. So I didn't bother recording it, but I can describe it, right? He said, what's your problem with the program? You know, this is a great idea. And I was very respectful.
That's my problem. He thinks it's a great idea.
I mean, Chris, I can be a jerk, but I can also be nice when I have to be. And I will tell you, I will admit, it wasn't easy, but I was very respectful to the guy. And I said, Councilman, my problem is not just the buyback itself. My problem is that you're wasting $10,000 of my money to do it. If this wasn't a waste of taxpayer funds, Councilman, I wouldn't be here. He's like, well, how else would we do such a thing? And I said to him, if you went to individuals and businesses who thought this was a great idea and they gave you their money to buy back guns, you would not see me at the event. Because I don't object to people buying back the guns. I object to taxpayer money being wasted to buy the guns. That's my objection to it. And then we talked a little bit more, and I suppose it was a nice enough conversation. I do wish we'd have recorded it, but whatever. He didn't want it recorded, and that's fine. It made no sense. Before they voted on it, they knew it made no sense. Heck, most of them acknowledged it made no sense, or at least that it wasn't effective. And yet they approved it anyway. And then Mayor Robinson agrees to spend $10,000 from his slush fund money, which the police chief, the interim police chief, was willing to spend $10,000 of the law enforcement trust fund, which is still taxpayer money. It doesn't come from taxes, but it belongs to the taxpayers, okay? It comes from seizures, cash and selling...
Civil asset.
Right.
So, yeah, but why don't they use that money for other funds for the Pensacola Police Department?
Well, they do. But he was willing to spend $10,000 of that on this buyback program. It just wasn't necessary because the mayor said, ooh, no, let me do it. I got $10,000 laying around. Let's use that. And so it didn't become necessary.
Where did the money come from? Have you done any investigation?
Well, it's taxpayer money.
I understand that, but I mean...
The mayor has a
discretionary spending.
The mayor has a discretionary slush fund that he can spend on just about anything he wants.
So where does that actual...
Tax money.
Yeah, but I mean, there's different things that are appropriated for different areas in the government. So I'm just wondering, was that, sales tax money? Was that property tax money? Where did that money actually come from?
Well, that I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
It was meant to get their name in the paper.
It's a photo op.
Yes, it was meant for a photo op.
It was a taxpayer-funded campaign event.
I mean, I would know that if I went out with $10,000 and said I was going to buy every gun that walked through the door, that I'd be out of that in 30 or 45 minutes.
27.
Well, right.
I think my watch said 9:27.
But even I had it estimated at 30 or 45 minutes just because I knew every old person that had their gun they've been walking around every gun show with for the last 10 years that they couldn't sell would be there to get rid of their gun for $200 or $150.
Yeah, and the people that came up to me because I had the sign that said, we'll pay fair market value, they came up to me and said, what are you paying? I said, well, let me see your gun. And they said, well, it's junk. I'm like, well, let me see it anyway. And they'd open up their little box, and it was junk. And I'm like, yeah, okay, go ahead and take the city's money because it's not worth $20. And they're like, yeah, I know, but if they're going to offer me $150 for it, I'm going to take it.
Oh, I don't blame those people at all.
I don't blame them either. I sold the 3 guns to make a political point. The 3 guns that I sold to the city on Saturday, I purchased the previous Monday. I didn't even own them for a week. I bought all 3 guns just so I could sell them to the city. And as I said earlier in the program, 2 of them were junk revolvers that I paid less than $25 total for, and one of them was a brand new retails for $150, and the city still gave me $200 for it. I did it just to prove the point of the idiocy of that so-called gun buyback program.
We ran a deal that morning, too. I don't know if you saw it on our Facebook page. It got a lot of attention. We actually sold those RS-22s. I put, if you want to make $50 this morning, come swing by the shop, buy an RS-22 for $149.99. We'll pay the sales tax on it. Take it down to the city's buyback program. They'll give you $200 for it. You'll make $50. And we had a lot of people calling, but unfortunately, they'd already stopped the buyback program by the time most everybody. We had a couple of people buy the guns, and I still honored the deal.
Would that fall under a straw purchase there?
There was no questions asked. So.
Well, no, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, no questions
straw
asked.
Purchase for the city of Pensacola.
Well,
I even talked to our tech guy. Me and him getting big political discussions all the time, and I said I read that flyer. And it said no firearms, and it said you must have a mask on. And I said, they can't enforce either one of those. I have a concealed weapons permit. I can carry concealed on public property, anywhere I want, unless it's prohibited, like a courthouse or school or somewhere like that. Also, the governor decriminalized any city's mask mandates. So they can still pretend that it's in place, but they can't actually do anything about it.
You can't really enforce it.
You can't enforce. You cannot enforce that.
Yeah, the city's mask mandate is completely unenforceable. But I was 10th in line, and the guy who was 12th in line started hassling the guy who was between us, the 11th guy in line, because he wasn't wearing a mask. He walks up, this is number 12, walks up and says to number 11, "Hey man, where's your mask?" I mean, this like little Karen. Now he was a guy, but hey, he was still a Karen. Not to judge his gender, but he looked like a guy to me. And I turned around and I told number 10, don't worry about it. It's unenforceable. And then when the cops came by to make an announcement, hey, make sure your guns are unloaded. This is the procedure, yada, yada. Number 12 says to the cop, hey, there's people in line without masks. Are you going to do anything about it? And the cop just ignored him, which I thought was nice. This whole thing was such a stupid, stupid program by the politicians. I live in the city of Pensacola. I know you don't. Jeremy, do you live in city limits?
I do.
Okay, so the two of us live in city limits.
This was so stupid that I traveled from Santa Rosa County to make fun of it.
Well, I made a big mistake when I voted for Grover for mayor in 2018. Mayor Grover Robinson must be replaced. He has been a terrible, terrible mayor for a variety of reasons. I mean, not only did he waste $10,000 of taxpayer money on this stupid gun buyback program, he later said that he didn't realize the gun buyback program would be so successful. And those are his exact words. I mean, what a moron. Successful based on what, Grover? That the city bought less than $3,500 worth of junk guns for $10,000 from a bunch of old people who weren't criminals? I mean, if Grover had $10,000 in his slush fund that he wanted to spend on reducing crime, he could have given that money to Crime Stoppers or to some sort of fatherhood initiative where it could have done some actual good. But that's not the only reason Grover Robinson needs to be removed from office. I mean, the list of stupid things he's done as mayor is very, very lengthy. When activists wanted to paint Black Lives Matter on a public street in Pensacola, the mayor not only supported defacing our roadways, he expedited the permit process for them. So Grover thinks our public streets are supposed to be a canvas for political slogans and electioneering. What do we paint next, Grover? Free Palestine? Save the whales? Respect the Second Amendment? I mean, paint on streets should be there to facilitate the safe flow of traffic, not to display popular phrases. But it gets better. And by better, I mean worse. Because when other organizations wanted equal treatment under the law with their own street murals, the city said they weren't issuing any more permits. But the BLM slogan still remains on A Street south of Cervantes. So constitutionally, The city cannot grant permits for street murals based upon what the mayor does or does not like. I mean, one either believes in constitutional rights for everyone or believes in constitutional rights for no one. Well, our idiot mayor is obviously the latter. I mean, the guy's a disgrace. When he was asked if he supported removal of the Confederate soldier statue atop the pillar at Lee Square, our cowardly mayor simply said he would support whatever the city staff recommended. Apparently, Grover Robinson can't think for himself and needs to be spoon-fed his opinions. Well, staff recommended its removal and suggested that it could be replaced with I kid you not, a unity tree. Seriously. The city then spent $135,000 to remove that statue. And Grover is a cowardly weakling in how he appoints people to serve on city boards, too. During a Black Lives Matter protest, Haley Morissette and her unruly mob of fellow lawbreakers illegally blocked the flow of traffic on the north end of the 3 Mile Bridge and refused to leave until Grover showed up. Then when the mayor arrived, the mob upped their blackmail criteria for dispersal and said they would not clear the road until the mayor pledged to appoint the ringleader of those lawbreakers, Haley Morissette, to the soon-to-be-created Citizens Police Advisory Committee. And Grover foolishly and cowardly pledged to do so and later did. So apparently, if you want to be appointed to a position with the city, law-breaking and blackmail are the most effective tactics. And Haley Morissette is probably the absolute worst person in Pensacola to serve on an advisory board of any sort. Not only is she a disgusting lawbreaker and blackmailer, she is a disgusting black supremacist bigot, too. There's a video of her presenting some kind of class. I don't know if it's at UWF or if it's a court-ordered thing at Lakeview Center that criminals need to go through as part of their sentence or what. I truly don't know. It's not clear where it took place. But wherever it is, do you know the title of her presentation? It was titled, I Don't Trust White Women. And the subtitle was, A Brief History of the Disconnect Between Black and White Women. And in that video, which I've watched multiple times, she described her racism, bigotry, and hatred of white people. Now, I understand if you're skeptical that that's really the title of her presentation, but I don't say anything on this program I can't back up with facts. So if you want to see it for yourself, go to YouTube and do a search for Haley Morissette Do White Folks Work, and it'll come up. And you can watch the entire video yourself and witness her disgusting black supremacist views directly. Just be prepared to hear both the F word and the N word because she says them both in her presentation. So that's who Mayor Grover Robinson thinks should serve on a city board. I should add that the entire time the lawbreakers were blocking the road, not once did Grover instruct the police to enforce the law and disperse the mob to resume the flow of vehicular traffic across that bridge. And then at this year's March 2nd meeting of that committee, while Haley was serving on that board, 2 other board members made valid points about how people should comply with the lawful instructions of police officers. And Haley, during that same meeting, dismissed their comments as irrelevant because they came from 2 white men. Her words, 2 white men. So Grover's appointee judges people not by the content of their character, but by the color of their skin. It was a disgusting exhibit of her anti-white racism. Grover also demanded $480,000 from the federal government's CARES Act to enforce Pensacola's mask mandate that was not only so flimsy that a fishing net over the face sufficed, but for which not a single citation was ever issued. Now, he didn't get the money, fortunately, but unfortunately, he was not investigated for attempted fraud either. I think he should have been. And as if that attempt to get almost $500,000 the city wasn't entitled to, Grover Robinson said that his mask ordinance was our one option that we have to protect ourselves. Those were his exact words, our one option. Really, Grover? Your stupid, ineffective, and unenforced mask ordinance was the only way to protect ourselves? Are you really that stupid? Are you really that ignorant? Are you really that devoid of knowledge about the real facts about mask ordinances, Grover? Apparently, Grover is unaware that there is no basis to support the belief that mask ordinances protect the community at all. Despite what idiots like Grover Robinson believe, the objective truth is that the coronavirus cases decreased after mandates were imposed in Connecticut, Delaware, Louisiana, Ohio, and Wisconsin, but they increased after mask mandates were imposed in Maryland, Texas, Arkansas, Indiana, and Kentucky. And cases surged massively in California, New Mexico, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and North Carolina after mask mandates were imposed. So there is no correlation whatsoever between universal masking and infection rates. None. And yet Grover thinks his mask mandate is our one option that we have to protect ourselves. Nothing else could help, Grover? Nothing? A mask mandate is the only thing we can do? I mean, what an absolute fool. I wonder if he actually believes that or if he was just simply regurgitating what staff told him. I wonder if, just like his position on the Confederate statue at Lee Square, that he actually was incapable of forming his own opinion and was simply regurgitating what he'd been spoon-fed by staff. Well, if that's the case, then shame on his staff for not knowing the facts about the efficacy of mask mandates across the country. And I have to ask, why do I know these mask mandate facts, but Grover and his staff do not? Apparently, not only is Grover an incompetent fool, so are his advisors. Pensacola is being run by an idiocracy at City Hall, and Mayor Grover Robinson is the idiot-in-chief. I will never vote for Grover Robinson again. The guy is a dunce and a coward, and he's a brainless puppet who's easily manipulated. Anyone would be better than Grover the imbecile. So next year, I will vote for anyone who runs against Grover for mayor. Their platform, frankly, is irrelevant, because even if the person turns out to be terrible, it would be worth it to kick Grover to the curb. All right, I got a little off the gun topic here, but it is germane, because the gun buyback program is just one example in a long list of stupid things Mayor Grover Robinson has done. But now we're almost out of time, so let's take our last break, and then we'll come back and wrap it up when the Mike Bates Show continues. Welcome back to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. With me in the studio, Chris Smith, the owner of Gulf Coast Gun, and also Jeremy Basso, the founder of Escambia Carry. And we are talking about the very successful, according to Councilman Wiggins and Mayor Robinson, gun buyback program that took place a week ago, Saturday the 20th in Pensacola.
Mike, I just want to thank the city of Pensacola. I know that sounds surprising to you, but after they gave this free money away, we had 5 or 6 people come in here with that free money and spend it in my store. So not only did I pay some people's salaries with that, we contributed sales tax in Santa Rosa County. Santa Rosa County wants to thank you as well. We contributed sales tax to Santa Rosa County. So thank you, city of Pensacola.
So this was the gun equivalent of Barack Obama's Cash for Clunkers program.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the one thing I suppose I should take a little bit of comfort in is that after the interim police chief offered $10,000 of his budget to fund it, and the mayor offered $10,000 of his slush fund to fund it, that they didn't just say, well, great, let's spend $20,000 on junk guns. I suppose I should take some comfort in that, don't you think?
I think so.
I donated 5 guns to the Pensacola Police Department the week before this buyback program, and they were going to raffle them off to raise money for their K-9 department, which I really respect their K-9 department, and I know the guys down there, and that was great. But I guess if they had an extra $10,000 laying around, they should have just bought them from me, right? It's just, it's one of those things. They're always asking for money, but they throw away money on stupid crap like this.
We do the waste roundup with used paint, aerosol cans, tires, and things like that. They could have had a sort of a rolling roundup with firearms. Hey, if you want to get rid of some, you don't know what to do with them, they're not functional, your spouse passed away, you don't know what to do with these, bring them down to the police department, we'll take them off your hands. Bring them down to the sheriff's office, we'll take them off your hands. It wouldn't cost anything. They could have even had somebody come in and appraise them and tell them, all right, you can maybe do an auction. Raise some money for the K-9 unit,
Absolutely. I mean, for any of the units.
Give the citizens a chance to actually have a look at those firearms that have been turned in.
I would have came in
purchased them
and made an offer on them. They could have auctioned them, like you said. They could have sold them to the public. We would have provided free transfers to the public to sell them to the public to get a little bit of that money back. But no, they got extra $10,000 laying around. What's the big deal?
They knew it wouldn't make the streets safer. They knew that no gun buyback program in the history of America has ever had a measurable effect on crime. So if they knew that, Jeremy, see, your problem is you want a solution. I don't think the politicians wanted a solution. What'd they want?
I think they wanted press. I think they got press. They got some talking points, bullet points to put on their flyers. They can go out during some photo ops and whatnot. They can go on their flyers for the next campaign season. I wouldn't be surprised if you see that on some flyers that go out. Hey, I voted for this and supported a gun buyback program.
But according to Councilman Wiggins, though, we kept people from committing suicide. But honestly, knowing what I know about guns, I wouldn't have used one of those guns to commit suicide with. I'd just be in pain for a few days after that.
Yeah, because it would blow up in your hand.
Yeah,
in those
that's
cases.
absolutely.
Hey, guys, we're out of time here, but we ought to wrap it up very quickly. Chris, where can people find you on the Internet?
Gulf Coast Gun on Facebook or GulfCoastGun.com. You can hit up either one of those, and you guys can find us.
And Jeremy, where do people find Escambia Carry?
You can find us on Facebook.
Just go to Facebook, search Escambia Carry.
Sure. Yep.
All right. And, of course, this program is not only on WPNN Radio every week, it is also archived at www.themikebatesshow.com. So, Chris, Jeremy, thanks for joining us today on The Mike Bates Show.
My pleasure.
Thank you.